Good morning. Happy Saturday. We had to do the coffee thing. There's a barred owl hooing behind me. Kind of cool. In the spring, their babies come, and you can hear them because they make the craziest noise you've ever heard when they're babies. They do this noise like this. So, good morning. Happy Saturday. So, let me ask you a question. Can we condition ourselves so that we actually feel more comfortable feeling depressed, or feeling more comfortable being sad, or feeling more comfortable being sick or frustrated? Can we condition ourselves so that we've been in that space for so long that that is more comfortable than being happy or being excited or being alive? Of course we can. Good morning. Morning, Julie. So what happens when we get in that situation is we've been in that feeling for so long that when we start to change and we feel like we're happy or we're excited or we're going somewhere, it feels so different that out of fear we'll go back to where we've been before because that's where we're comfortable. You can end up where you're more comfortable feeling depressed than you are feeling excited. And remember, we talked about conditioning, right? Once we get something conditioned in our body, that kind of tends to be where we go. And so we have to break those habits. So first, understand that your body likes what it's used to. That's what it knows, and so that's where it goes. So don't feel badly if you're making all kinds of changes, yet there's certain habitual feelings that you're having a tough time moving away from, because it's just your body trying to protect you, okay? It's trying to tell you that, hey, this is where we've been and we've been comfortable here, even though you really haven't. It's less fearful than the unknown. And so this is where I'm going to take you because I know that this will be something that we can survive. Remember, we talked about that reptilian brain that we all have that is really all about survival. It's trying to protect us from the saber-toothed tiger. So when we start changing things, our brain is like, well, wait a minute. We weren't happy here, but we were comfortable. This is safe. We're not going to die. So we should stay in this area. So don't feel badly about that, but recognize it. And one of the ways that we encourage looking at it is, are you married to your story? And pretty much everybody is. We've all got some story that we're married to that we need to divorce ourselves from. Have you ever been around somebody that no matter what, they always have an illness? So they'll have one, did you hear the owl? They'll always have one illness, and then when that one gets done, then there'll be another illness, and then another illness, and then another illness. There's always an illness. Well, I had this, and then I had this, and then I had this, and now I have this. Why is that? Do they feel great when they're sick? No. It's because that illness gives them certain things that they're looking for. It gives them connection. It gives them significance. It gives them sympathy from other people. Now, it doesn't do it in a very high quality way, but it does it. It gives them those connections. And if they've tried to find those connections in other ways, more positive ways, and it hasn't worked, then their reptilian brain is going to go back to this. They're going to say, look, this way isn't great. It may not even be healthy, but it works. We get what we're looking for, and so we're going to go back here. That's the challenge with labels, right? So when somebody gets a label of manic depressive, okay, now I'm not saying that there isn't real mental health issues. I'm not saying that those problems don't exist. I'm saying whenever we get a label, that's a dangerous thing, because then all of a sudden we become the label if it's a negative one. So bipolar, manic depressive, morbidly obese, what a great term. So when we start to get hyperactive, ADD, ADHD, all of that stuff, once we get a label, then that label can start to become our identity because we get certain positive things from it. First of all, it's an excuse. Well, it's not me, it's the disease. I have this disease, and so therefore that makes it so this is how I am. I can't change. It also gives you significance. Oh, I'm different from everybody else because I have this issue. And it also gives you connection and empathy from other people. You can say, well, I have this situation, I have this problem. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's, it doesn't fulfill you in a great way. It's not an outstanding way, but it does. And so we can get married to that story. So how do we go about that? Well, first of all, like I said, I'm not saying that these issues don't actually exist, but they don't have to define you and control you. And whatever issues we all may be dealing with, we can find much better ways to fulfill ourselves in terms of growth, in terms of connection, in terms of opportunity, in terms of certainty, than by doing it in a negative way. So rather than finding negative ways to figure out what's going on, find positive ways. And this is the whole 80 or 90-20. Spend 90% of your time solving the problem and 10% of your time defining the problem. If the problem is something with you, don't become the problem. Don't make it your identity. And then you'll find your way to get out of it. So one of my favorite examples personally is I went through a financial crisis coming up on 9 years ago. A building next to my building collapsed, and it tore down part of my building, and I couldn't get at my files. I couldn't get it at work. Other things were going on in my life at the time, and I ended up in the middle of a lawsuit between my city and the state that I live in, the city of Freeport and the state of Illinois. My insurance company wouldn't pay my business interruption claim, which I'm sure some people have dealt with that during this coronavirus. I couldn't make any money. I couldn't get to my files. I still had tons of expenses. I still had to pay my staff. And within a period of 14 months, everything that I had saved over 20 years of practicing law was gone, and I was $800,000 in debt. In fact, the day I graduated college, I was $805,000 richer than after 20 years of practicing law because I had $5,000 in my pocket the day I graduated college and I didn't have any debt. And 20 years later, I didn't have the $5,000 in my pocket and I was $800,000 in debt and I had nothing. Retirement gone, every savings gone, the couple of pieces of gold in the safe gone. Everything was gone. Well, right after that incident happened, I went to a Tony Robbins event, and I went and saw a buddy of mine named Ralph Zuckerman. I'll do a shout out to Ralph. Ralph lives in Florida. He's a wonderful guy. And I had all these pictures on my phone of the incident, and I had all this stuff, and I was wrapped up in my story. I was telling my story. Look what's going on. Look what's happening to me. And the problem with doing that is you're not doing anything to fix it. You're just telling what's going on. You're not solving anything. So you're just living in that story. So I went up and I showed Ralph. And Ralph and I are great friends. And he sat there and he watched diligently through the whole thing. And then he looked at me and with the most blank stare in the world, he shrugged his shoulders and he goes, okay, get the blank over it. And I kind of looked at him. You ever seen somebody when you do something that you shake them up, their eyes kind of go to all four quadrants of their brain trying to figure out where did that come from? And I looked at him and he goes, look, man, this sucks that this happened to you, but you still got your license to practice law. Everybody in your life's health is fine, and you can fix this. You've got the tools. So rather than telling me about this, go home and fix it. Stop worrying about it and go change it. And then later on in that event, a couple of other people shared their stories, and they made my story look like a joke compared to the stuff that they had dealt with in their life. One guy in particular named Billy Brown, who wrote a book called Rising from the Ashes, which ended up being a New York Times bestseller. He was one of our crew at that event. And if you ever get a chance to read Billy's book, his life story is extraordinary. And he shared it for the first time at that event. And after he shared his story, Ralph looked over at me, and I'm like, okay, I get it. You know, it's just a building. So when I came back from that event, all of my focus was, how am I going to fix this? And as a result, I did fix it within a much shorter period of time, and that could have devastated. I mean, that could have been the end of my law practice. It could have been the end of my, financial life. It could have been the end of my daughter's dream to go out to Hollywood and be an actress. But instead, I used that situation and that opportunity to change many things that I'd wanted to change in my life for a long time. That's when I quit drinking. That's when I started working out at a much higher level. That's when I focused much more on my office, and I newalized myself. I re-engineered how I did things. I ended up walking away from my law partner of 20 plus years because it was time for us to go our separate ways. I instituted new systems into my office, and I took things to just a whole nother, like 10,000 levels higher. And it was a result of that event. And it was a result of how I focused myself. Rather than focusing on the problem, I focused on how do I fix the problem and what's the solutions that I come up with. But the first thing that I had to do was I had to divorce myself from my story. I had to stop telling my story, and instead of doing that, I had to start fixing it. And the very first thing that I did was I changed the label. Rather than saying all this, I started calling it my personal growth opportunity. And that sounds goofy, okay? I mean, it sounds almost, but you know what? As I kept saying that, this is my personal growth opportunity. This is my personal growth opportunity. I mean, and you talk to people that were around me. That's how I referred to it. That was my personal growth opportunity. Well, you know what? Then your brain starts going, okay, personal growth opportunity. Well, let's look around. Let's find what we're going to do. And it ended up being just that. So for the rest of this Memorial Day weekend, I offer you the opportunity to divorce yourself from your story. What's your story? I'm not good enough. I don't have enough education. I'm too young. I'm too old. I can't lose weight. I'm big boned. I had children, so therefore I can't lose weight. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough education. I don't have enough energy. I don't have enough time. Whatever that story is as to why you can't accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish, I offer you a hiatus for this weekend, this Memorial Day weekend. Take a break from your story. Leave it where it needs to be. Tell it thank you. It served you all that it could, but it no longer serves you. And put it to rest, put it to bed, and divorce yourself from it and take a weekend break from your story. And instead of focusing on that, focus on what are the ways that I can create these outcomes. We need to take care of each other, and we're going to get through this. Things are starting to open up. It's starting to look like summer out there. Have a great Saturday, everybody. Thank you very much for watching.